Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is Healing Overflow, and I'm Dr. Toy. Hey, listen, y'all, I have a guest today that really, I'm going to read her bio, but it should say phenomenal woman. Seriously. Her name is Valerie Dixon. She was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the historic Hill District. Then she moved to East Liberty, where she was a graduate of Westinghouse High School. She was accepted into the Plumbers Local 27 apprenticeship program, and then she obtained her journeyman's plumbing license and remained in the trade for 10 years. She was a supervisor for UPMC's Best Healthcare program until the tragic death and homicide of her one and only son, Robert Dixon, on June 25th, 2001. This drastically changed her life. She was thrusted into action, and now she's a well-known activist in the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. She is very affluent in assisting families who have suffered from the trauma and loss of a loved one. She implements change in policies and procedures, and she's behind the initiatives that directly address these concerns. Ms. Dixon is the executive director of her own organization called PACT Initiative, where their key focus is on unresolved homicide billboard campaign. These feature individuals that have lost their life to violence. She holds the current position as the Director of Family and Community Support at the Center for Victims, where she's been employed there for 19 years. That's where me and Valerie Dixon met and became really good friends. Ms. Dixon is very active as the Vice Chair of BPEP, Black Political Empowerment Project, and is a co-convener of the Coalition Against Violence. She's engaged with a committed group of council members who are dedicated towards advocating and implementing positive change within the African American community. Please go on our Healing Overflow page and read her full bio, because I'm going to tell you what, there is a long list of just how great this woman is. I swear, there should say in the bio, she's a bad mama jamma. I am so happy to introduce you to my friend, my sister, Valerie Dixon.
Well, hello, Dr. Jones, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am so proud of you. This is a wonderful opportunity, and no better person than Dr. Toya Jones to facilitate these discussions. This is just a beautiful platform, and I'm so glad that it was a brainstorm of yours. But thank you for inviting me on the show.
Thank you for coming.
You're
Thank
more
you for coming. Listen, I'm so glad to have you here. I know your story. We have bonded over your story about your son. One thing I say as a trauma therapist for so many years, and that's how we met. We worked and helped folks that have been, been struggling through various violence and crime and tragedy. And I remember saying, to my clients, introduce me to your loved one, because I haven't had the opportunity and the pleasure of meeting them.
Mhm.
So, Valerie, if you could introduce us to Robbie and just let the viewers know who he is, um, let them get to know him a little bit through you.
Oh, that is so sweet of you. I appreciate that. I'll tell you, from the day this kid was born, May 24th was his birthday, and he just been a bowl of energy from day one. And one of the things about him, sometimes I used to always think, who am I in life? And, I have no, direction, no meaning or anything until I had that kid. It was like he just brought so much out of me, and he just showed me what the beauty of life really is. But one of the things what was his pure joy was football, playing football. And it wasn't initially. He was always so active. I had to have him in everything with that little energy. But one day we were walking past Peabody High School, and Kingsley Association, they have their little league football team. So they were out there practicing one day, and he was 7. and we're walking past, and he ran over to the fence and he just grabbed on the fence and he's like, "What they doing? What they doing?" He's like, "They're playing football." He's like, "I want to play. I want to play." I was like, "Well, you got to sign up." I'm telling her, "You got to sign up. You got to do all this." So I called one of the coaches over and I said, "Well, what does it take for somebody to start little league?" And he was telling me, and then he said, "They have to be 8." And I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, I'm gonna sign up next year." So we're getting ready to leave, and he's clinging on the fence. I'm like, "Come on, we gotta go, we gotta go." He didn't want to go, and so he said, "Can I play? Can I play?" I said, "I gotta sign you up." I said, "But you gotta wait till you're 8." We went home. He cried for 2 whole weeks. He wanted to play
Oh.
football. So I took him back in 2 weeks and told him he was 8, and we signed him up for football. And he was just a superstar from the day he walked on the field, and to the day he played from little league all the way up until he did 1 year of college at Merced College in California, but he begged to come back home. He begged to come back home, and during those years, he got awards. He had lunch with the mayor. He was like that high scout, and I always tell people that GPA is so important. You got to go to school, got to go to class, and you got to keep your grades up. And those are some of the things that kind of hindered, those next steps. But he was like still Mr. Superstar in the community. But when he went to college in California and he begged for 1 year to come home, he called me every day. I had to get a 1-800 number. My phone bill was so high. And we brought him back home. And he actually had an interview with Walt Harris and Joe Walton of Pitt and Robert Morris, and they were, saying, if he went to like a junior college for a year or two, they'll look at him then. And, he was just so disappointed in that. But he ended up with a friend who was in Atlanta. And at the time, Bishop Eddie Long, before the scandal, he had a program, a buddy buddy program, that you could go and practice with the Atlanta Falcons, show them your stuff during summer camp. And he showed them some footage of my son, and they wanted him to come down, and they sent up for a plane ticket, and he was supposed to go down in 2 weeks. And unfortunately, someone in the community that just didn't want to see him rise to what was intended for him to do, decided to, take his life. And on June 25th, 2001, that actually happened. And,
Wow.
in that tragedy, you just wonder what you're going to do with yourself, with your life. It's just so overwhelming, and that energy that he had for life, that zest that he had, it
Mhm.
just compelled me, to keep using that energy and that drive and try to help others, that have lost a loved one to violence. And, how do you channel that grief and that loss, and I had to figure out a way, because even in finding out or trying to find out who killed my son, I knew no matter what happened, I still had to figure out a way, how would I live without him in my life. That was going to be
Right.
consistent. Everything else was what's going to happen to the guy that did it. So I didn't want to
Mhm.
focus on all that. I was like, how do I focus on, channeling my pain and loss and grief? And he was my only child and didn't have any kids or children. I never had a chance to be a grandmother. All the things that was taken away from me was overwhelming. But in that loss and trying to find out justice, I didn't realize how many families were living that life and never had the opportunity for justice, for healing, for wellness, because usually it's like, find out who did it first and then I'll work on my healing and my wellness, putting their eggs all in one basket. And that doesn't work. It's like you got to dive in that wellness and healing first, because
Right.
that's going to be consistent in your life. And how do you do that? And I found a way to do that. So by the time I got to trial, I was like, whatever happened at the outcome of the trial, I've already started to work on some welling and some healness and wellness. And that journey, of course, in that journey, I met advocates from the Center for Victims that helped me get through the court process. We found out who did it. We within a month, we went to trial within a year. But that whole journey, I was learning things through the advocates of the Center for Victims about healing and wellness and how you channel your grief. And I started my own organization, the Pact Initiative, Prevent Another Crime Today, that had these unsolved homicide billboards that featured a family member that lost their loved one to violence, and the families were engaged in that process. So it not only helped with them knowing that their loved one mattered and that other people care about their loss and their grief, but it got them to a level of saying, I want to do something to help with my grief, or I want to share my story if it can help another family, or I want to engage in some type of community event so that, my story might help change another young person's mind of taking someone else's life or harming another family. So it got other family
Right.
members engaged. And so that was the key to the steps toward healing and wellness, because you could get lost in that darkness and it takes you down a road that you just can't come back, and I thought I would be
Yeah.
a good bridge for family members that, when they see the journey that I've taken and where it's taken me to, they can have hope that they can get somewhere in their healing and wellness from such a tragedy. And so that's
Whew.
a 20-year continuous unfortunate journey. But, I know God has used me as that vessel, and they did not stop the what my son, the impact my son would have had on people. It still reigns today through me, through healing, through that journey. And still today I have people still talking about my son. Like, that means so much. Like, he got a posthumous award too. He was gone for 17 years, and he was recognized, as, a leader and somebody that had the passion and zest for life and for football. And, so I that's what has carried me, and that's what I try to help family members, get through their journey. That loved one that they lost, they carry on through you, and
Mm.
you can heal through that. That's a huge piece of it. So, that's who Robbie was, from day
Wow.
one. He brought life to others, and I feel
Yeah.
like he continues to do that.
Well, you continued it on, Val. When I hear your story, and I've heard it many times, we've sat down, had lunch, and talked through
Mhm.
this. That moment, you decided this will not keep me down. I will not get swallowed up in this hole. I will get up. I will push through this healing process, and I'll reach out as I'm in the muck and help others. Like, that was a turning point. That was a decision, and you allowed people to help you and grab your hands, and you got out of that, and you continue to help people. That's phenomenal.
Yes, yes, I definitely, thank God for that. Always say that, through him, all things I know is possible, because, I tell my mom too, thank God she's still living. I
Yeah.
used to live on her faith. I used to draw for her faith till I gained my own, until I was able to get my own. She carried me with hers, and I gave my
Thank
own.
God for mamas.
Yes, thank God for mamas. And I just so glad I had them in my life. And I don't preach, I don't pray, anything like that, but people see God through your own actions and your own, the way you move, and I think that's the biggest way and to deliver him and his word, and his strength, because it can get you
Yeah,
through literally anything. And you see that in people's actions, you know what I mean? I don't have to preach it and pray it and hit you on the head with a Bible, you know what I
that's
mean?
right.
It's in the spirit that you exuberate to others. And I thank God that he was there, before I had him in my life beforehand, and I thank God he was there when it happened, because I don't know where I
Mm.
would be if he wasn't, So
Wow.
that's
What do
big.
you that it is big, and the strength, I mean, just hearing you speak and seeing you work in the community, there's so much strength and there's so much power behind your words and your actions and your movement. I know people that you have helped, and that you pulled them out of that hole. You've helped them so much. I know how much you helped me as a therapist, and you as an advocate. When we were working together, I would come to you. I was very new as a therapist, and said, can you talk to me about homicide survivors and what that's like, and give me some tips on what is most helpful to them, and what's the healing process. And you sat there, you schooled me. You're Professor Valerie Dixon up in here. And that really helped to mold me, who I am today and what kind of therapist I am today. So turn that outward to our viewers. There are viewers here that said, please, overflow some healing onto me, because I am hurting. I'm in the
Mm,
hole. I'm in the quicksand. I can't seem to get out of it, and I'm
yes.
struggling here. Give me some tips. Val, help me. You've been through this.
Oh my God. It's it's wonderful for anybody that's even watching right now. You're already taking steps right now. You're looking into, um, I need an avenue. I need something to reach out to connect with. That's something that, rings that bell for me. What moves me to the next step. And a lot of times we forget some of the things before our dark moments, what made us happy before. We put so many things back on a back burner. And, one of the things I'm just so happy about is that the avenues that I've been given and provided in front of me to say, hey, what do you think are some things that can help draw people? As African Americans, we have a stigma about seeking therapy or going to get counseling. I don't need no shrink. We're strong people. We'll get through this and all that stuff. We're regular people like everybody else, and we hurt and we try to suppress, and move forward and move on. And those things that we suppress, they have to find somewhere to house. But the more you suppress, the more it starts to build up and it's going to bubble up and it's going to blow up one day. And where are you going to be when that happens? Are you going to be having a conversation with one of your kids and it goes left? Or are you going to be at work and people say, oh my God, you snapped out, or on a bus somewhere? So we can't suppress. We got to find a way. We're all like a hot water tank. We got to have a relief valve and find out, how do we get that relief? Where do we find that at? And I've found so many avenues. Mine's was, I jumped straight into activism. Like, why are our kids killing each other? Where are they getting these guns from? Who's working on this? What's going on? I dove in. I was at meetings, community meetings, and I was hearing voices of people saying different things, and I had to figure out which was my lane, what was more important for my lane. And a lot of my lanes was, even though I was a criminal court victim advocate, for the 19 years I've been at the Center for Victims. For 15 of those years I was in court, and I was a great advocate. I knew about the court process, and I navigated the families through that ugliness, or the beauty of it as well too, and I knew when they left that courthouse, whether it came guilty or not guilty, they still had to go home and deal with their loss and their trauma and that emptiness, And so how do we reach them there? How do we give them some tools for that process when they're at home? And staying connected was one of the things. Like, you can get into a loneliness of a darkness that you're all alone. You could be in a room of 100 people and still feel you're alone. But how do you reach out? And it's just like NA or AA, you reach out to people who have gone through it. I think you get a lot more connected for people who either have decided to live in the field of that work or people that have gone through it. Those are the ones that can help you navigate, and try to find your way, because it really is up to you to find your way, what attracts you most. And to me, it was the mothers, the grandmothers, the sisters, the aunties, the women that are still left in the village that have to keep moving forward with such tragic loss and hold their families together and be that glue still that everybody goes to. And how do you do that? How do you try to navigate that when you feel like, I need help, but everybody's coming to me for help? I'm not pillars.
Right.
So where's my pillow to lean on and lay on? And I said, that's my avenue to reach the mother. Because if you reach the females in the family, the loved ones that have lost, then you've reached so much core of the family, because they are the ones that help keep the ship moving. And so how do we continue to make sure the ship is strong, and that it doesn't sink? And so that was the avenue that I said, let me look at that. Let me reach out for that. And one of the things that we do here, that the center has allowed us to do, and that we talk about in the community, is different projects. And we have a women's wellness group that I started here at the Center for Victims. Actually, it started as an intergenerational healing group, because we've seen how generationally trauma is carried down. And when it's not addressed, we give it to our children give it to their children, and so on and so forth. So it becomes intergenerational, unaddressed trauma. And we had to see how we could begin to break a cycle of that and look at that, identify it first. Some of us haven't even identified the trauma that's carrying on through our lives. And we walk through it with it daily on our shoulder like a book bag.
Yeah, right.
So when
weighing us down.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So pinpointing it, sometimes that's the pain that we don't want to feel. So that's why we suppress it. But when you feel the pain, you got to feel it to heal it, so to speak. And so when you feel it, you've
Ah,
identified it. You said, "Oh, that's what it is. That's why I'm making those decisions, those choices, and that's what's triggered." When you put a finger on it, now we can start working on it. Now I identified it. So how do I work on that thing so that it's not my trigger? And I don't want to. I know your time is of the essence, but I wanted to share a quick trigger of mine was when Robbie died. One of the things before he died, when I go shopping, I could not come home without everybody know about that Quaker oatmeal, the apples and cinnamon in the box, the
right.
instant one, got the little green label, lime green color label on it. I could not come home without that in a box, in a bag. And so I came home. One day I went shopping after Robbie passed away, and I came home. I did my regular shopping, and as I was taking everything out the bag and putting it on the counter, I pulled out the box and I looked at like, oh my God, I bought my son's oatmeal and he's not even here. And
Ooh,
I looked at that box and that box is my trigger. So that box is in the bread aisle. So every time I go to store, I know I got to get bread, but I got to see that box. And I'm in aisle 7 crying with some
yes.
cereal in my hand and I said, that was one of my triggers. That
Mm-hmm.
Quaker oatmeal, apples and cinnamon was a trigger for me. Seeing that little lime green label. And I would walk down the aisle sideways so I wouldn't see it. So bread on this side. So I'm walking sideways. Then one day I looked down the aisle and it looked like it was a mile long. And I said, I'm going to have to figure out a way to overcome my fear of that box. So I walked down that aisle and I went to my regular bread and I seen the box and I had a short jolt, but it didn't kill me.
Mm.
I said, this is not going to kill me. I just have to face it, face my fear, and get through it. Now I go through the aisle now and I see what new flavors they got out now. They got new flavor out now.
Was, and
So I,
some healing has
yeah,
taken place. Yes. Let
yes,
me, I
I
just,
had to face my own fear.
yes,
So
let me
that,
explain for the viewers. Valerie's talking about healings, and when you've gone through a traumatic event and a situation like losing your son and your loved one, those triggers come through your five senses. And so things like your sight, your smell, your taste, your hearing, your touch can trigger memories. So I really can appreciate you saying something as simple as a Quaker oatmeal instant oatmeal box. I know what they are. They're in my house. My kids devour them. Things that simple can be a trigger, but understand, viewers, this is a normal reaction to the really abnormal, out the box experience that you've gone through. So, thank you so much for sharing that, Val.
oh, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. And I love what you shared about the five senses because some people don't connect it. That's where we receive all our information and our brain processes. So whenever you were traumatized or whatever incident it was or event, there was one of those five senses that's going to draw you back to that event and start those triggers happening. And it's a physical reaction as well, an emotional, psychological. So you can go through a whole gamut of feelings and emotions and not know why. But if you could tie it back to your trauma, you identify, oh, well, that's what's making me go there. I never put the two and two together. So that's
Mhm.
very, very powerful. And thank you for even, sharing that. I definitely
Uh,
did.
That's awesome. A lot of times that's what folks do, healers. I don't always say therapists, but there's healers that come in all kind of different ways, coaches and religious figures and group leaders, all sorts of things. Healing comes in all kind of ways. But one tool is art. And I'm one that I use art. I'm not an artist. I draw a stick figure. Y'all can't tell me it is not the best looking thing in the world, but but there are art groups and there are folks that lead art groups for healing purposes. And I know that you have used this tool and you continue to use this tool to help others to heal. Could you talk to the viewers about what you're doing and how it's really just helping others to heal?
Yeah, well, one of the things in our wellness group, and I contribute bringing the idea to the table. Stephanie Christner, she's a director of our clinical team here. Uh, she brought the idea, the concept of kintsugi. And kintsugi, Kintsugi, kintsugi is a Japanese, it's a Japanese art of healing. And what they use, kintsugi is kind of the phrase for golden journey or golden repair.
Ooh.
And so what they do, it's like mending something that's broken with something that's beautiful. And you utilize, gold or silver or platinum with something to pull back together the brokenness of something. And that brokenness in the healing process of repairing it with those different facets, it makes it even more beautiful than it was before it was broken. So you still see the brokenness, but the healing of that brokenness makes you even more whole and more beautiful than you ever were.
That
And
is
so,
so nice.
oh my goodness, it's been a journey. So it's like it started to be a 6 week. We said we're going to do the six week process, but it ended up being more weeks than that because the conversation around it is the healing journey that people take on it. And so,
Mhm.
if I could do a couple of visuals for your
Yes.
audience, I want to share how we kind of begin everything. And so, Kintsugi starts out, how we're doing it here is we have these beautiful bowls that we select. And so we have different types of bowls that we have our our clients come in and pick a bowl of whatever their color is, whatever they feel they connect with, either the lines on the bowl or the design with inside of the bowl, whatever draw them to that particular bowl. They can pick whatever bowl they like. And once they select the bowl, we ask them to select a cloth. And the cloth can be of any color, any design. We have several different cloths that we offer our clients to choose that they're going to wrap their bowl in. And so when they initially select their bowl, we ask them why they select that particular bowl, and describe, what you've seen or what you felt when you selected that bowl. And we do the same with the cloth that they select. We have a discussion of why they decided to pick that particular cloth. And so once we have that discussion and bring up some different topics of why they selected that cloth, and we discuss a few things, then they get to wrap that bowl up. So when they wrap their particular bowl up, we ask them to wrap the bowl up. I'm going to show you another visual. So they wrap the bowl up in a cloth. We just have it in a plastic bag because everybody's is the individualized as we put it up and when they come back to the session. So they wrap it up in a cloth, and yes, we actually give them a small hammer. Little cute small hammer. Don't go get your husband's industrialized hammer at home. A little small hammer. They could use either side of it. But we ask them to tap their bowl a couple times. Give it a few taps. I mean, we've had a couple that actually pulverized their bowl. And if that's where they were, then that's what they needed to do. But we wanted to just have them tap the bowl in a couple areas that they like, however they like to do it, and tap the bowl because the discussion is once they have tapped the bowl, we ask them to open up their cloth again. You open your cloth back up. And once they open the cloth up, they have all these different pieces in the bowl. We ask them as they unveil the cloth, keep the pieces in the bowl and just look at those pieces, those broken pieces, those pieces of brokenness. What do those pieces, how do they relate to any parts of your brokenness? Are there any pieces that relate? And why do they relate? Did you look at the big piece and say, I could relate to this piece because of A, B, or C? The small piece, let me even share. We have some, as you see in the bottom of this, usually when you break some, you see a lot of little crumbs. Well, we had one client, she couldn't take the little crumbs. She wanted to get rid of all the little crumbs and just keep her big solid pieces. And that was fine. And we had a discussion on why she felt she needed to do that. What did those little tiny crumbs in the corner, what did those little crumbs indicate to her? Where did that take her in her thoughts about her life, about her journey in life. And we discuss each little piece that you're looking at in your bowl. And then we share with the group. At that time, we're going to put our bowls back together. We're going to mold back together our brokenness, but we're going to mold it in beauty. Because once we've shared it and we have talked about it, we have put it out there, now it's time for some healing. And putting our bowl back together is that healing process. And so in that healing, what we utilize in the healing, now we get, and before we actually do get started, I did want to say you definitely have to use a tablecloth. Put the tablecloth on because it gets a little messy. Being broken is not pretty, and so we connect with that, and then we also give everybody an apron because we're going to be using some glue, some spackle, whatever it takes to try to put your brokenness back together. And so we actually hand out our aprons for everybody and our little tablecloth so that we make sure, we have some ladies coming from the gym or coming from an event. We don't want them to mess up their nice little outfits. And so, and so we give them all the little tools that they need. And we start out with different type of epoxies or glue. And so when we utilize the epoxy glue, they could use whatever ones they would like. And then we also have these clamps that we use. And so the clamps help them put the bowl back together. We have the large clamps. We have our little small clamps that we use so they can clamp their bowls back together. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what that looks like. And we actually start with some tape because sometimes the tape is better than the clamps. And that was a discussion that even came up as we started to talk about our healing and our wellness process because with our eyes, we thought the clamps would work better. Oh, clamps, tape and clamps. Well, I'd rather use a clamp than a tape. Tape's not going to put my bowl back together. That's tape. So when they start using the clamps and the bowls start falling apart, they wasn't sticking and staying together. One of our clients, they used the tape, and the tape held better than the clamp. So the visual that we think is best sometimes is not, and sometimes it's the second choice that we actually make. And so what I'm going to share is my particular bowl. So my particular bowl, I picked this lovely design, okay, leopard, whatever it might be. I love this design. I love the smallness of the bowl. And one of the things in my discussion is you see my little hole there that's still there? Those were like little tiny pieces of my brokenness. And I thought that was very poignant because I try to put things back in perspective in my life, but there are things that just don't work and they seep through that little hole. And I try to get them and try to hold them and put them back in there, and it never works. So that's me always trying to fix something that's just really some things just can't be fixed, and I have to accept that. So that hole is kind of a representation to me, is that some things just can't be fixed, okay? And sometimes you just got to let go. And my clamp here is a representation. Now I had several clamps on here, and it took a minute for me to take my clamps off. So, in my journey is sharing my brokenness. You see, I still have this one clamp I can't just let go yet. I might, maybe our next session, be ready to let go of that clamp, but I have a hard time of letting go of some things, and sometimes I need to be made aware of that. But that's kind of my journey and has been part of my journey and my process of how I do things in my life. And so it was just truly a representation of me and how I move through life. And so when we come to each session, we each pull out our bowl, no matter what state it's in. If we just broke it and it's still wrapped and we put the name on it for someone, we put their little name on it. They come back and they, get their little plate or their bowl, and they go back and they get their glue. We have actual glue. We chose gold, so we have gold glitter glue, and then we have like just the gold glitter that we use on our regular glue, and we utilize that in the pieces that we put together with our glue our epoxy or whatever it might be. And then we shake it out. And mind you, we have sparkle glue all over the place. I do have to vacuum. Make sure you got a vacuum. And when we complete it, it comes out. Even though you are broken in your healing process, you are even more beautiful than you were before you were broken, because your journey has taught you so much in your brokenness, and you've learned so much, and you've given so much to others, that it just comes out beautiful, more beautiful than it even started. And so those are some of the discussions that we actually have when we do
Wow.
our kintsugi exercise.
Oh, that blows me away. It really is beautiful. It really is beautiful. Thank you so much for just walking us through that process. It's so powerful. I could feel it all in my chest, in my body. That was so powerful. I can't imagine what kind of healing power is just flowing all over the room when you do that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for doing that for our community. That is so
Oh,
powerful.
you're so welcome. We're excited each step that we are, and no matter who comes in the group, we start them on the step, and everybody just continues on from wherever they're at, and it just feels like a natural flow. New people in the group just open up. It just seems so safe.
Yeah, I think you said something so important. No matter where someone is, they're still in the healing journey. Some might still have their cracked pieces in the bag. Some might be putting their golden glue on their pieces, but they're still in the room to heal. And that's really
Mhm.
powerful.
It
Thank
is.
you,
It
Valerie.
is. Thank you.
You've
Thank
been
you.
wonderful. You've been wonderful. Thank you so much. I have to have you back and just to continue to talk about, healing this brokenness. There's just so many ways. And as viewers, I really hope that you got so much out of it and you just have a little bit more tools to keep going. Keep tuning in to Healing Overflow. Again, I'm Dr. Toy, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you,
Thank
viewers.
you. Congratulations. Thank you.